In Ukraine, fully a fifth of Covid-19 cases are among medical personnel. The shortage of protective clothing is particularly chronic here. This factory has been among those scrambling to help redress the balance.
When the coronavirus arrived, we had to adapt our profile. We did it literally in one day. We developed a PPE suit and immediately started production.
The company stepped up production when it won a state tender to make 90,000 protective suits, more or less of this type.
Hood, zipper, elasticated wrists.
But at the last minute, the health minister unexpectedly refused to sign off on it.
You can imagine our reaction. We bought material for 90,000 units and already made 23,000. They're now just lying in our warehouse. We don't know when, to whom, or even if we're going to sell them.
TK Stahl's parent company says it could face bankruptcy after losing this contract. Ukraine's government chose instead to import protective suits from China at double the price, bypassing the independent agency whose job it is to organise tenders. The Health Ministry argues that the Ukrainian manufacturer doesn't have the technical certificate EN 14126. The agency says that wasn't on its original tender request.
Had the ministry wanted us to mention this requirement, they should have mentioned that in their letter, which they did not. They added it after we had announced for the tender in the electronic system. They added it after we had signed the contract.
The government appears unhappy with Jumalidov's agency and reluctant to cooperate with it.
The situation actually started early March when we had the previous minister Yemets blocking the procurement.
The agency was set up as part of anti-graft reforms worked out after Ukrainians rose up on this square against a corrupt government in 2014. The idea was to take procurement out of the ministry's hands to cut corruption. Jumalidov now fears that someone may be trying to turn back the clock.
It is really worrying that now we see actually the attack on the agency by the ministry. This is something that really raises concerns.
A recent report by Ukrainian investigative journalists has heightened those concerns. For days, they observed comings and goings at the health ministry.
Дуже дивно, цей чоловік приїжджає до МОЗу просто кожного дня, стоїть на закритій парковці і каже, що він не працює в міністерстві.
Тут ми побачили
We saw well-known players from the pharmaceutical market who'd featured in various scandals, who'd even been under criminal investigation, and also forgotten officials from the pre-2014 era.
There's no evidence of wrongdoing as such, but there is a very vivid memory of how things here used to work.
They'd sell medicines to the state at a highly inflated price, then share the extra cash with officials in the form of kickbacks.
Irritated by such insinuations, the minister says he's just trying to buy decent equipment.
Tolerance for corruption should be zero. But I need suits for biological protection, not suits for painters. Do you agree with me that those are two different things? As far as I know, no one in Ukraine makes biological protection suits that meet this standard.
It's debatable whether the certificate belatedly demanded by the ministry is really relevant. But even if it is, these volunteers found a different Ukrainian company that does have it.
81.30, правильно? Це треба більше, треба. Passport.
This is the specification sheet, laminated protective suit conforming to standards EN 14126, 2003, AS 2004 IDT.
The volunteers deliver them to a children's hospital in Kiev region.
Standard procedure. We photograph everything for the record.
What can I say to the minister? What matters to us is that we have protective suits, no matter who makes them, as long as they meet the standards. These ones do. They're certified. We've had suits of this type before and we like them.
Patience of Ukraine says it paid less than half for these suits than the government is paying for the ones made in China, which, it was announced last week, will be delivered at least 10 days late due to Chinese government controls.